type of news clearly tells you that something is not very correct. When they say ancient Egyptians were more European than African, and they say this is from DNA research on mummies, what we know clearly is when we look at ancient Egyptians, we see here he is a descendant of ancient Egyptian who is currently in Egypt today. Let's continue to show this kind of news. When they go on the Independent here to say that ancient Egyptians more closely related to Europeans than modern Egyptians, scientists claim, and we know from statues that our ancient Egyptians left that they look melanin dominant or African. They're planting doubts, especially the Egyptologists. They use mummies and technologies and pick out selectively the mummies, especially from the Roman rule, like these mummies. And they say this was done by a professional team of researchers at Red Bath Museum in Montreal, making 3D models of 3 Egyptian mummies of people who died 2,000 years ago during the period of Roman rule, Greek rule, Roman rule, Turkish rule, Ottoman Turk rule. It is very clear that these cannot be ancient Egyptians. Because why do you say the rule of people who invaded? Because we know that ancient Egyptians looked like this. Europeans and pale Arabs want melanin dominant human beings out of ancient Egypt. Such kind of history to them gives them the thrills and the excitement, and they will be happy. They don't tell you that there was no Middle East. The Middle East was created by Europeans for Arabs because Arabs are their cousins. The civilizations that were already there, 1800 BCE, clearly show that it was melanin dominant people, black people, Bantus in all those lands. Why do Europeans and pale Arabs want you out of ancient Egypt? Because then it will make it easy for them to steal the greatest and the best legacy ever given and bequeathed to humanity. Europeans, pale Arabs, and Semites have no original ancient history, so they want to claim and steal the best. Persia or Sumer was melanin dominant, was ruled and founded by black Bantus. India also was known as Eastern Ethiopia. In order for Europeans and pale Arabs to sustain their colonial and Eurocentric perspectives, they want to drive you away or drive people away from these centers of civilization. There is also historical significance, and they still wear the legacy. In ancient Egypt, there is a very, very powerful historical significance why they want it, because our ancestors founded the original civilization ever. When you talk of Atlantis and many Mu, Lemuria and others, ancient Egypt is the epitome and the signature for all those civilizations, because the cultural impact, its massive scientific contributions, religious and philosophical insights that came from Egypt. No other source of these religious, spiritual, and philosophical insights can be discovered today. None except ancient Africa. There is also unsurpassed archaeological discoveries in ancient Egypt. Critical thinking and analysis. The study of ancient Egypt promotes critical thinking and analytical skills, and an appreciation for historical research and methodology. Count Devon, a scholar and confidant of Franklin, an aristocrat of pronounced Republican sympathies, once explained the conundrum why Europeans want to be Egyptians. But he did so in a manner that we are now looking at and turning around. He said, how is it that a people now forgotten, meaning melanin dominant human beings, in his book, The Ruins of Empire, that is, discovered while others were yet barbarians, which means Europeans, pale Arabs, and Semites, the elements of the arts, the sciences, a race of men now rejected from society for their sable skin and the frizzled hair, founded on the study of the laws of nature, those civil and religious systems which still govern the universe. You can see the power of understanding the legacy our ancestors bequeathed to humanity. Today, the official name of ancient Hamid is Egypt, which came and was just given by the invaders, the Greeks and the Romans, Europeans. And then now it is called the Arab Republic of Egypt by again the same people, Europeans, who now call themselves Arabs, because they have moved from Europe, they've moved from Turkey. They came, these Arabs, 639, in what is known as the Arab conquest of Egypt. It's known, it's historical, you can study their books and books in university courses on that. It's not like it's a myth. And that process eventuated in what is known as the Islamization of Egypt or Northeast Africa and the creation of the Middle East. So they are invaders, these pale Arabs and Europeans. They are not indigenous there. That is the fact that we must know. But their theft methods continues, and they use whitewash and mafu, and eventually they are going to remove you out of ancient Egypt. And the tricks they use are so many. One of them was that they once used black and white photographs as opposed to color pictures to convince anybody that ancient Egyptians were white. And their favorite people and favorite kings and queens are identified here. Like this supposed Imam of Yuya at Cairo Museum, the father of Tyre. And they used to promote this, but they look like that. And also comes to the issue of hair. So when you see a mummy like this and the hair like that, you think, oh, no, these were Europeans. They are not at all. Because this is supposedly the mummy of Ramses III. And the mistake that they made here was to point out that this blonde hair means they were European. There is no man who is 90 years old who would have blonde hair. Any 90-year-old with blonde hair is because of whitewash or hair or henna, which was used during mummification process. A 90-year-old man will have white hair because Ramses died at age 90. So he cannot have the same color of hair he had when he was alive, when he was a young fella. And we know that they still Ramses because he's the greatest, the pride of Africa, who set the standard for all rulers who should follow. And they now fake him and make him pale like that, while his statue is exactly melanin dominant. He had a very roundish face, short dolly-sephatic face, not a long like this. It's fake. Oh, this is fake. These are mummies, Roman mummies. The face they reconstructed based on Pharaoh's mummy comes out as European. While we know that Ramses II was a melanin dominant human being. We've shown his images, not this. These are all fakes. When you compare the colors of all the images in ancient Egypt, the skin tone of ancient Egyptians found in the royal tombs, you have to notice that the images tell you the truth. But of course, they are going all over repainting them. If you look at this one, and the photographer who took this one put his fingers there, it is clear that you can see the shade of light black here, brown here. But the same, you can see again, dark blue black at the back. Same with this one here. So they seize on these little differences, and then they want to remove that and promote this one and say, oh, he was dark white. That's what they want to tell you. And blunt nose to sharp hooked noses. This is ridiculous because even melanin dominant human beings who have got sharp nose. Here is Akhenaton, the 10th king of 18th dynasty, with a sharp nose. And here again Saure, second king of 5th dynasty, with a blunt nose. And the same color difference between mother and son. This is Queen Amos Nefertari, blue-black. And her son, King Amenhotep, lightish. And also Amenhotep the third, 9th king of 18th dynasty, light complexion. This is what tells us that Europeans are not indigenous in any part of Africa. And if this is what they do, our kings, this is proof that the Europe elites know that ancient Egyptians were black, Bantus, melanin dominant human beings, and they're not Europeans. You can't do this to your ancestor. You can never do that. So it is very important that the Europeans are fighting to sustain their colonial and Eurocentric perspectives, historical significance, and they want to do so by stealing away the legacy. Because this way the legacy has powerful cultural impact and massive scientific contribution to the world, as well as being the religious and philosophical source for anything that you can call philosophy, religion, or spirituality. And there is unsurpassed archaeological discoveries in Hamit, not in Sumeria, where people have been pointing you to and say, oh, Sumer this, Enquit this, this. No. It's ancient Hamit. It's still standing structures. You don't have to dig. You can walk there and see. And also, ancient Egypt gives you critical thinking and analysis. So Europeans know that skin color is a result of diversity due to mutation. That's the problem. And the 4 genes have been identified as depigmentation genes. And the process of depigmentation occurred 8,000 to 11,000 years ago due to KTLG, TYRP1, SLC24A5, and SLC45A2, and the Oka series. You can get our book Free from God. It will elaborate and explain these changes in detail, giving you the origins of Europeans or people that are pale on earth. Now, these pale people are ready to claim originality in a manner and in a way of justifying and changing the nature of history. We cannot allow that to happen, because science itself has told us that this KTLG mutation occurred as people moved out of Africa, go to the north, go to Europe, go to Asia, as well as all over in Americas. But those that moved to India, right to Vietnam, there to Singapore, Papua New Guinea, up to New Zealand, never changed. Remained dark. So that's why see melanin dominant beings who are there today, because the mast cell factor, growth factor, and also stem cell factor of KIT ligand never changed when you look at that and those migrations. So I wish you can challenge any Eurocentric historian to produce just one writer, whether Greek, Hittite, Assyrian, Sumerian, Babylonian, or Cypriot, who can describe the ancient Egyptians as white, because there is none. In the absence of that, it is wishful thinking and willful effort by modern scientists and Egyptologists to want to change the words of Pliny the Elder in his book Natural History, book 277 AD, who said that Ethiopians were black, Egyptians were black. Their hair tells them that. Also, Herodotus about the Caucasians said the Egyptians were black. He went there, investigated and discovered and knew how they became black. Galen Mixtures, book 2, 1st century AD, he said the hair of the Egyptians and in general all peoples who inhabit hot, dry places has poor growth and is black, dry, curly, and brittle. That does not mean they were not one odd one out. They would be there, because melanin dominant beings, we are the source of diversity, right? So because of these facts, our teacher, Dr. John Henry Clark, said the Europeans not only colonized most of the world, they began to colonize information about the world and its people. In order to do this, they had to forget or pretend to forget all they had previously known about the Africans. This is what we are saying here. Exactly, the truth is clear. The origins of Europeans, Asians, and other people is from the original stock of black people, melanin dominant human beings. And it is only their behavior towards the original people that is tragic, as Count Devon pointed out. You can read The Iceman Inheritance, Prehistoric Sources of Western Men's Racism, Sexism, and Aggression, which is very, very important to understand, written by Michael Bradley. And we know that ancient Hamid went through a whitening process by pale Arabs who are there today. We have shown some of the leaders that are there today. It lost its original color after the Byzantine, which is Rome and Greek. Also the Rashidun Caliphate, pale. Also the Suleimans, pale. Ottoman, pale. British, pale. French, pale. German, pale. They all invaded Hamid. It is very important that to those who do not learn from history, they will be doomed to repeat it and to fail. This was said by George Santayana. So we wish to say we shall continue to share these truths, and as Marifado, we shall keep focused on these truths and continue to share to as many people as possible. So if you are interested in continuing with this journey, like our videos, comment, share, and subscribe. You can visit us on our website www.marifado.org, and also our Instagram marifado_US. For questions, other requests, you can send an email to join@marifado.com. Her manager to be preacher Rabbi LM Mjaganja says, yes, Europeans are not indigenous on any part of the earth. We melanin dominant human beings, indigenous on every part of the earth, inclusive of Europe, the Arctic, as well as Antarctica. Thank you. Till we meet again. Have a great day.